They provided $0 to deal with the ongoing genocide of MMIWG2SLGBTQIA+. This is abhorrent. This is callous.
Why are we adding more letters to what is already an increasingly long Wi-Fi password? Remember when it was just LGB? Simple, clear, focused. A movement centered around sexual orientation. Then it became LGBT, then LGBTQ, then LGBTQIA+. Then apparently somebody sat on a keyboard and now we've got MMIWG to SLGBTQQIA+. At this point, the acronym looks less like a civil rights movement and more like the email password reset you've been ignoring for 3 weeks. But here's the serious part. The new edition, MMIWG, stands for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. That is a real and tragic issue, a serious one, a devastating one, which is exactly why I find it so bizarre that it's being stapled onto an acronym originally built around sexual orientation and gender identity. Because what are we doing here exactly? We've gone from a coalition about who you're attracted to including gender identity, to now folding in an entirely separate social justice crisis involving violent crimes against Indigenous women. Not every marginalized issue belongs under one giant umbrella just because activists feel spiritually adjacent about it. And frankly, shoving missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls into an already bloated sexuality acronym feels less respectful than it does performative. It takes a specific crisis, one deserving of focused attention and dedicated advocacy, and turns it into just another prefix in an ever-expanding alphabet cinematic universe. At some point you have to ask, if this acronym can include sexual orientation, gender identity, cultural identity, and now unrelated social justice crisis, then what does it actually mean anymore? Because when everything gets folded into one ideological supergroup, the original purpose gets diluted. And if I'm being honest, this is part of why I've separated myself from the so-called LGBTQ community, because at this point, I simply do not agree with much of what is being pushed under that banner anymore. I do not need activism, ideology, or an ever-expanding acronym to validate who I am. Who I love is my business, who I am is my business. My life, my relationships, my values are not dependent on collective approval from a political movement I increasingly do not recognize. So no, I do not consider myself a part of that community. You can care deeply about Indigenous women, you can support gay rights, you can discuss gender identity, but pretending these are all the same category because they fit under marginalized people is intellectually lazy. Not every cause needs to be merged into one mega brand for activist marketing. Sometimes separate issues deserve separate names. A radical thought.